John, wait a second. Did you hear that?
What is that?
I think I hear a summer storm in the middle of winter. And that's storm as in Red Storm and summer as in Steve Somers. Steve,
Well,
how
that
you
sounds
be?
like the kind of opening that I would do and then decide it isn't going to work, but it did.
How's
Steve
it going,
Somers,
Steve?
everybody.
Well, hi, guys, and thanks for having me.
And Steve, when was the last time you can say you were on a college radio station?
Well, about the same day that I was featured on the front page of the sports section of the New York Times. Probably this would happen once, how you say, in a lifetime. But the last time, I think today is a very interesting day because I was featured in the New York Times, which is very surreal. And the last time I can't remember being on a college radio station that had the reputation that you guys have. So it's a first for me twice today.
Steve, John Perez here too. First of all, I got to say it's an honor, and I got to say this. I always, on my way home from work, I get off of work around 7 o'clock. I always have the instinct to call in on whatever you're talking about, but I don't want to be rejected on the phone line, so it's actually great to talk to you in person. And if I could just share a little, the first time that I heard Steve Somers, it was like 2007. I'm coming home from the Mets and the Giants, and it was a Met-Giant game in which Barry Bonds pinch hit in the 11th inning.
Yep.
Right.
And you were doing the post game, and my accent's awful, but I'm not going to say it. But I remember you said, and Baroyd comes in the 11th inning, and his head the size of a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade balloon. And I said, I got to listen to this guy. And you went from the overnight guy to Steve Somers to one of my broadcasting idols. So.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. I mean, that means a lot to me coming from fellow broadcasters. And, no, I like to have fun with cartoon characters like Baroid and with me, and maybe it is with you, too. I mean, you do have to cover the issues and cross your T's and dot your I's and get into the X's and the O's and the 5 to 4 and the 3 to 2 and the 2 to 1s. But it is entertainment, and so we like to have fun with it. It's not life and death. It's not, like war and the economy and God knows things that go on in real life outside the sandbox. So, yeah, we do take what we do very seriously, all three of us, but we could also have some fun doing it.
And Steve, absolutely, we always see and hear you having fun, and but it's all business in the newsroom. Getting ready for your show, I see you with your little yellow pad, and all of that stuff is mentioned in the New York Times article, and that's actually a really great read for those of you who don't know. Steve Somers, as he alluded to before, was featured in today's New York Times.
Oh, yeah. No, and I'll tell you, it's so surreal. I mean, it really is flattering. There's no question about it. See, and because you're aware of the article, it's very difficult for me to read. And what I mean by that is very flattering, don't get me wrong, but I think that this is the kind of article that will happen if you avoid getting fired, if you don't get paid a lot, and you happen to stay on the same job for 25 years and live long enough. So I know when I stink and I don't do a good job, and I know what that feeling is like, and, that's never going to be mentioned in articles like this, but it was very well done and very flattering, and I'm hoping it'll get me a raise, and probably the only raise it'll get me is a raise out the door.
Well, Steve, if you're horrible, or as it alluded to, garbage in the article, then I can't tell you. I can't say the words of the other broadcasters at that station. Everyone does a great job there. So basically, the keys for aspiring journalists are to take any job at a low pay and just stay there for 25 years and live. Is that what you're saying? That's
right. Live long enough and don't tax their payroll, and you'll be around forever. You do have to be lucky. I mean, I do take, not myself seriously, but I certainly take what I do seriously, and I know that, and you two guys are a great example, young and sharp and smart and aware and knowledgeable and passionate about the teams and sports in general. So to be among you and to learn from you, see, that's the key, I think, is to take what you do seriously, but not necessarily yourself that seriously. In other words, if you do stink or you do not do as good a radio job or as good a performance in almost anything that you might be involved in, to move forward from it and not retreat from it, and to use it, absorb like a sponge, take in everything that you can take in, good and bad, that you do, and no boss can tell you when you haven't done a good job. You know it, and I know it, and you want to take from that and get motivated from it. In other words, not retreat from it, but to move forward from mistakes. And God knows that I've made every single mistake there is to make, but I can learn from it, and I think I have. And I think all the mistakes that I've made, not only at WFAN, but in my whole life, you can learn from and move forward into a more positive direction if you remember the mistakes you made and why you made them and how they can motivate you moving forward.
Steve, I got to ask you, too. I just love the article. I always had this illusion that you were always in this dark studio, and the monologue, the opening monologues always came from the top of your head. And I guess you have to spoil it for me now, but I got to know. Is it scripted? Do you read word for word?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I thought so.
Well, a formal monologue, I've never met a piece of paper, and I'm really old-fashioned. I mean, I don't even use word processor. I write everything out longhand, and for a left-hander, I write very well, very legible, and I like to look at a blank piece of paper and come up with ideas. And I could use the back of an envelope, but all of a matchbook, anywhere, a napkin, anywhere I can put down an idea, even if I wake up in the middle of the night. Although now that I think of it, I work in the middle of the night. But the whole point is that I like to write things down and go from there. I do some openings off the top of my head, tip of my tongue, usually at the very beginning of a program, whether it's 6:30 or whether it's after a Met game at 10 o'clock or 10:30, whenever it may be, whatever my schedule is. When I start, I might have a formal monologue, but for the rest of the show, at the top of the hour, coming back after an update or coming back after a commercial break, I might have off the top of the head, tip of the tongue. And of course, Howie Rose, when I first started at WFAN, Howie always used to joke about Steve right now is scripting his ad-libs. and of course, what I was doing was preparing a monologue. Sometimes it takes me all day. Sometimes it takes me about an hour. It depends on that day, what's happening, what the subject matter is, what the lead story might be that day. So I put my time into it. And as you guys know, it's 24/7. Hold on 1 second. I've got to let a UPS guy in. I'm just going to buzz the door. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
Yes,
All right.
Steve.
Well, it's kind of like we need a little update in the middle of that. But you're listening to Steve Somers on The Voice, WSJU, and
The immortal Steve Somers.
The immortal Steve Somers.
WFAN, who has been there since its inception in 1987.
Okay, I'm back.
There he is.
And there he is.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I don't think I've ever done that before.
Hey, it's a first for everything.
Sort of like turning your microphone off and coughing.
And Steve, speaking of your little bits and monologues, one of my favorite bits you actually did was the little Tom Coughlin bit, and and you did 2 parts of that, and that was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. But
yeah, I think that made YouTube. And
yes.
Are you talking about where we were interviewing Coughlin, but it wasn't really Coughlin?
Yeah.
Yes, and where he had Gilbride next to him in the hotel room,
right.
And he was freezing, the whole bit. You know the deal.
Yeah, well, some things some things really work out okay. And listen, I have to be fair with you guys as I am with myself. Not everything that you do works, but I will attempt almost everything. And of course, like if you were to tune in to Boomer and Carton, you hear a lot of things. But way back 25 years ago, with sound effects and bits and monologues, it was all new and it was all fresh. And I think that's really where I think my reputation started, and really what I may still be living off of. And what I mean by that is not that I don't put in the same time or effort, but it's not new anymore. See, one thing which is really great is that you are at a very popular radio station for 25 years. I'm very proud of that because it speaks to my work ethic, and I always credit my father, who ran a little mom-and-pop grocery store, but cared so much about it. I didn't care about helping him out there at all. I didn't like it. He knew I didn't want to work there. But what I learned from him was what it meant to him, so that no matter what it is that you do, whether you're in radio, TV, whether you're a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, whatever it is that you do, that you care about it passionately. And as my dad did with his grocery store, I do with radio, and you guys obviously the same also, caring a great deal about what you do. But way back 25 years ago, when nobody knows you, and I think this is the key in any career, it's how you get off to a good start. And there have been a lot of people on the air over at WFAN over the years that I thought were okay, but they didn't get off to a good start. I was lucky, and you have to be lucky. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, you can plan, prepare, work your tuchus, your behind off. You can do all of that and not make it. And yet you're putting in the time, the effort, you have the work. You have to be lucky that whatever it is that you're doing can gather an audience. And when you are doing something different that nobody had ever done before, with formal monologues and production pieces and sound effects and shtick and bits like the Coughlin thing, you don't know if it's going to work or not. You know that you want to do it. You know it's fun or funny to you, but you have no clue, no idea whether it's going to work in a tough market like New York or whether it's going to work anywhere for that matter. And you get lucky if it does work. And I think that you could be good, but you have to be lucky for a chance to be great. I always say that about the Jets, that when they made the AFC title game 2 years in a row, you know, a lot of people would say, well, they were lucky. I mean, the Colts rested Peyton in the second half, and Cincinnati laid down in the last regular season game. It didn't mean anything to them, and the Jets won easily, and they get into the playoffs, yada, yada, yada. Well, that's all part of it. In baseball, and any sport, you have to be good, and you have to be lucky to be great. And I'm hoping that someday I'll be really great. I know I've been lucky.